Hello YouTube and welcome to the Armourer with me Blue today, and I'm going to try and make a series where I go over the replays of pro players and try to figure out why they make the plays they do and try to get better off of that. And what better place to start than the PT LA finals between Dorinthea and a Dromai. And let's get started with the deck lists. This is a open deck list format, meaning that both players should be fully aware of the cards that their opponents are running. A couple of notable cards in Dorinthea's list is the existence of Neuron equipment, but him not bringing it, and I believe that is correct because the value that you're going to generate off of Forge Bracers and Valiant Dynamo is going to be much greater and more important than the value generated by Neuron gloves. And I believe the Neuron is just here for Kano together with your Oasis cards. We see Amnesia and Down and Dirty as additional poppers together with Command and Conquer, and we see Cleave, and Cleave is a card that allows you to effectively destroy 2 dragons with a single axe attack. Next, let's get to the Dromai list. The Dromai list we see is aggressive. It runs none of the expensive dragons, no 3 cost, 4 cost or 5 cost dragons, only 3 blues that he may have even cut in this matchup, because Dorinthea we saw only has like 7 poppers. He has Snatches, Blaze Headlongs and other such aggressive cards, and he's obviously going to be running the Tomes, because in his deck he's only running Crown of Dominion and Tomes into everything, because Tomes are basically his only Ash generating card, and without the Tomes his deck is kind of going to really struggle in terms of Ash generation. Starting with the game, we see Maximilian on Dorinthea going first. He is the higher seed, so he chooses if he wants to go first or second. I believe going first with the Dorinthea is absolutely the correct play. You know that you have things like Spill Blood and other reactions that can allow you to deal a little bit or a lot of bit of damage to your opponent turn 1, but also I do not believe you want to give Dromai a chance to set up a bunch of dragons turn 1, so that you have to then spend your second turn in which you're meant to take the tempo just killing dragons. And he opens effectively the nuts. He's going for Spew Blood with 4 Dominate into Blade Fury into Shift the Tide of Battle, allowing him to generate an agility for next turn as well, into another axe for 7, I believe. Yeah. So at the end of the day, this deals like 5 damage to the Dromai turn 1, effectively 7, because like the gloves are just 2 additional health. The Dromai is going to go for a very aggressive play, very fire-like behavior, I would say, where he just goes for a Ravenous Rabble, Blaze Headlong, Ravenous Rabble, and he ends up arsenaling his Rake the Embers. I think that this is very smart and is something that some people may kind of miss, because they're so used to just activating their gold as soon as possible in Dromai, and maybe also making use of Rake the Embers as soon as possible as well. And instead of that, what he says is just, I'm just going to attack him for like 12 off of 3 cards, which is perfect value, and I'm just going to arsenal my Rake the Embers for later turns, which is completely valid, right? Like the gold token is not going to go away, Rake the Embers is not going to go away, and you'd much rather just get the immediate value off of all of these 0 for 4 cards, especially in your second turn after you have taken 5 damage from Dorinthea's turn 1. And you know that she can't really she won't really block a lot here because of the agility token, because I feel like Dorinthea really wants to push damage exactly when she has an agility token. The Dorinthea here is going to just attack for a couple of damage, and Dromai is just going to take the entirety of the damage. And we're going to see that sequence a couple of times, and we have seen that sequence in Dromai's previous matches, but essentially Dromai kind of has to take some amount of damage in order to then generate a bunch of Ash and Dragons, and basically hope that the dragons that she generates are enough to help her win back the value lost from taking that amount of damage. She's going to go and pitch Nourishing Emptiness, Temai, and Yandorai, activating a Sigil in order to be able to pitch the third card for the Furnace, activating Rake the Embers, and then going for a CNC. So here, maybe it was possible to play the hand out in a different way, where you end up with a Yandorai instead of a CNC, but I think that CNC is just such a powerful card, a card that pressures Maximilian a lot. You know that he has like a bunch of defense reactions in his deck. I'm not sure if you can safely assume that he has removed all of them, but even if he has, CNC for 6 here and removing his arsenal, effectively putting him down to only 4 cards, is once again kind of like this immediate value that the Dromai wants to get. And I know that we have been talking about kind of like getting your value over a couple of turns and having a bunch of dragons on the field, but the problem is that if he just put Yandorai here, he would have done like 6 damage overall collectively, and the Dorinthea could have just kept his like 5 card hand with a tunic, effectively allowing him to most likely not only kill the Yandorai during his next turn, but also attack with sort of like a big axe in the middle, or the Dorinthea player could have just decided to attack the Dromai with like a very powerful hand altogether. And here you're kind of keeping the life difference similar, and you're also getting rid of a bunch of cards off of the Dorinthea. Right, like you can't make plays that are so low tempo, like the one where you just drop the Yandorai. Yandorai seems difficult to kill, but essentially it's just 2 axes, right? Like the first axe hits him for 2, the third axe essentially hits him for 3. And we're going to see Dorinthea here just block the CNC, and then just attack for 8, and still have Go Again and Tunic to destroy yet another dragon. And the thing is that this turn here that Dorinthea did could have been just attack Yandorai, attack for like 8, or potentially even more, and then attack into Yandorai, like leaving him with like a few more Ash Wings, but effectively having like 2 more cards during that turn to do even more damage. Here we're going to see the Dromai just go for Miragai Temai, which is just kind of like the perfect number of dragons, because as we said, Dorinthea really struggles with 3 dragons, right? If it's 2 dragons, you can just kill 2 dragons and deal damage like he did last turn. But with 3 dragons, you can't do that, right? Like you have to leave one of the dragons on the field. And the dragon he decides to leave on the field is Temai. destroying 4 HP dragons for Dorinthea is kind of difficult. You need to use your Brave Forge Bracers in order to do so, meaning that you can only remove one of them from the field. And he kind of decided to remove Mirgai from the field, giving him the option of just drawing into a popper this turn and slowing down Dromai's tempo by a lot. But allowing Temai to stay on the field makes Dromai's tone play a lot safer, because Temai is not only useful against Kano players, it's also useful against practically I was going to say everything, but like in this match specifically, it's very useful because it stops things like Take It on the Chin. You know, these instant cards that give you agility. It also stops Balance of Justice, meaning that during this turn, Maximilian cannot just draw a card off of the Balance of Justice. He's just going to go and pitch another Nourishing Emptiness, which is very good because these Nourishing Emptiness are doing nothing with like all the Ravenous Ravels in the graveyard. He's going to pitch a Fate Foreseen, and we're going to see him pitch Fate Foreseen and other defense reactions quite a lot in this game, because he realizes that playing defensively is not really how he's going to win the game, because he wants and he needs to pressure the Dorinthea as much as possible, especially in the turns where he has been allowed to keep a hand with which he can pressure the Dorinthea. So here he goes for Temai, attacking without Phantasm after the Mirgai. He's then going to activate the Furnace and play a Rake the Embers for only 2 Ashwings. Rake the Embers, I feel, is broken even with 2 Ashwings, and in Dromai, especially this kind of Dromai that we already talked about, is going to kind of struggle with generating Ash outside of the Tome turns. Keeping an Ash is something very, very important, and that is also the reason why he did not develop the Asvuai, which is the last card in his hand. He did not develop it this turn, essentially in order to keep an Ash open for next turn, right? Technically, he could have developed Asvuai this turn, attack with the Asvuai before the Mirgai, putting Maximilian in a situation where if he destroys the Asvuai, he has already taken the arcane damage, but the Mirgai and the Temai are once again both alive on the field, and that probably means that the Dorinthea won't be able to destroy both of them again, leaving one on the field for longer. Or he would have to take the Asvuai damage and hope that the Dromai player attacks with the Mirgai as well. And one of the biggest things that a Dromai player can do is just never attack with their most prized dragons in situations like this, essentially to kind of block their opponent's hand with effectively a useless popper now, effectively giving them an IP for a turn or two. But he decides not to do that. Because in a situation where Maximilian has a popper, he can at this moment simply decide to spend the entirety of his resources to just get rid of the dragons. And next turn, Arthur knows that his turn is going to be very low pressure, precisely because he's going to be out of Ash. And in order to generate Ash, he will need to play something that is not a dragon first, and then pitch to Furnace and then generate a dragon, and that's like usually a sequence where he only generates 1 dragon, and as we already talked, unless you kind of have 3 dragons, it's not really worth it. So that's why he decides like, okay, this is a good amount of dragons, right? So I already have like 4 dragons on the field, and I can just simply keep this Asvuai instead of burning my Ash this turn, in order to next turn be able to just pay for a couple of 1-cost dragons and then drop the Asvuai, which is exactly what's going to happen. Here we see an attack for 9, and he decides to leave the Dromai on the field for an additional turn, because otherwise he would have had to miss such a large amount of damage. The Dromai player decides to just take the entirety of the damage, and he just develops a K Warrior, exactly how we talked about, because he already had an Ash. After the K Warrior, he's going to go with an Azvlai that he developed only after 3 consecutive dragons have hit, kind of confirming that there is no popper in Maximilian's hand. And also his last card threatens Ash generation with Dust Up, and that's why the Dust Up is just going to eat 2 armor pieces. And now he's once again in a situation where he has 4 dragons. And here we're going to see Maximilian finally destroy the Temai. And that is very, very important to destroy the Temai instead of any of the other dragons, because I believe he has a Take It on the Chin stack in Arsenal, but he also wants to be able to activate Balance of Justice during this game, and he won't be able to if that Temai stays on the field. Which is why he just leaves the Azvlai as it is. During the Dromai player turn, he is going to activate Tome and then try to summon Temai. In response to the Temai, Maximilian is just going to destroy his Balance of Justice, allowing him to draw a card. Unfortunately, he still can't use his instant from the arsenal, but I mean, what can you do? Here, Arthur has a very interesting decision making, which is he kind of looks for the long value play, a long-term value play instead of the immediate value play, where he could have just he could have just pitched the E-Strike here instead of the Billowing Mirage, and just attacked with the Billowing Mirage in order to generate yet another Ash and just keep the Dromai from next turn, or even like pitch the Dromai in order to have like 4 dragons again, plus 3 damage immediately, plus another Ash for next turn. Instead of doing any of that, he's just going to consume all of his Ash, but he's going to keep an E-Strike for next turn, allowing him to effectively use his E-Strike Boots combo. And obviously the Dromai also kind of isolates his board from exactly this double popper turn, which is a lot more likely right now because Maximilian drew a 5th card off of the Balance of Justice, and we're going to see exactly that because he pops the Dromai and then he pops the Azvlai as well during the same turn, leaving Arthur with only 2 dragons. He's going to get attacked by Amnesia, which he has to block, otherwise he can't develop dragons. And he obviously has the Sync for an easy block, and then we're going to go for Cleave into destroying the 2 dragons with 1 swing, exactly how we talked about in the decklist section. Here we're going to see his E-Strike with 5 go again due to the boots, allowing him to still have like 3 cards remaining and push for 5 damage. We're going to see Take It on the Chin finally escape the arsenal, another 0 for 4, and I believe finally he still has an E-Strike. So the interesting things here are, this is exactly what we were talking about, where you kind of want to have exactly these turns where you just push for a large amount of non-dragon damage right after your dragons have been cleared, in order to try and force your opponent to block, in order to kind of give you space to develop your board later. Here with the final E-Strike, he could have had E-Strike for 7 here, which would have been objectively more damage, and you can argue that more damage is like very valuable in these late stages of the game, but he knows that this additional 2 damage will not really change the way Maximilian has to block if he wants to keep his hand. And he'd much rather do E-Strike for 5, draw a card, and just draw into a red card, which is maybe guaranteed if he has cut the passing mirages, and then he can just pitch that card to the furnace, giving him Ash, allowing him to once again kind of have a more productive turn next cycle. Here we're going to see block with E-Strike and the gloves. Using the gloves here is, in my opinion, kind of a mistake. I mean, he is getting like low enough to where like arcane damage alone can kill him, and maybe just staying at like higher life points is better, but then again, it was still just vanilla damage. And we're going to see him later kind of play out the game in a way where he fears a snatch, and he has been kind of playing the game in that way for the entirety of the duration, right? Like he didn't commit any blocks to basically anything other than the last card of the combat chain up until now. Whenever those turns happened, precisely because he was fearing snatch, because he knows there's snatch in Arthur's list. So here he's going to go for the Spill Blood into 4, being blocked by Favor Scene, into 5. And this is a very confusing turn sequence as a whole, because Arthur decides to just take 5 dominate damage instead of like just preventing 3 and going for E-Strike for 7 again. E-Strike for 7 would have been like a very telegraphed turn, right? Like it leaves nothing to interpretation, but instead he's going to decide to just keep the E-Strike for Arsenal yet again. And he's going to go for Billowing Mirage, create an Ashwing, and keep a card in hand. Now Maximilian has no idea what that card in hand is. He knows there is Snatch in the deck list. He is expecting Snatch to come during any point of this match. And that's what kind of baits him here, right? Because he's going to go and use a card in order to block the Billowing Mirage, obviously, because he's down to 4. And then he's going to think a lot on the Ashwing, and ultimately he's going to decide to just take the damage from the Ashwing. So we have to talk about the kind of the current hand and expectations of Maximilian, I believe. I understand kind of to the best of my ability. He has Take It on the Chin in Arsenal. He has Take It on the Chin in hand. He has Tunic counter. He has one block on the Dynamo, 1 block on the Tunic. The other 2 cards in hand are red Hit and Run and a blue card. In order to have the most effective damage-wise turn, he needs to have an agility token of one of the Take It to the Chins, in order to then be able to pitch a blue card to go for Axe, Hit and Run Axe, and then a third Axe, because the first Axe will probably be into the Ashwing. But here's what he's thinking, probably, right? He's thinking that Arthur took the damage last turn because he's going to try and pressure him with more damage this turn, meaning that he's probably seeing this turn. That means that he probably kept a 0 for 4 card or some sort of a dragon in hand. If it's some sort of a dragon, it wouldn't really matter because he's just going to cover it with the Dynamo and Take It to the Chin, right? Because like the 0-cost dragons are Azov and Komai, and both of these can just be blocked by Take to the Chin and Dynamo anyway. And he obviously wants to keep the Tunic as long as possible. If it's a 0-4-4 though, and he has used Take to the Chin here, then in order to not get down to 1, which then makes him dead to a singular Asvoi, he will need to block with like the Dynamo and the Tunic, and he loses the Tunic, or he will need to commit another card from hand, and committing another card from hand basically make his turn void, essentially, right? Like his turn is just going to be attack for 5. On an attack for 5, Arthur can just say block with Furnace, and I'm coming again with a 4-card hand. If it's Snatch, precisely, he gets absolutely destroyed because he needs to block exactly 4 in order to not give Arthur yet another card. That other card in Arsenal can be an Asvoi, can be Burn Them All, can be any of the defense reactions, or Sigil. And in like a lot of these situations, these are like all very, very bad cards for Maximilian to see, especially when they're free. Off of a Snatch. So that's why he would just rather take this 1 damage, and then if this is Snatch, he can cover it up with Take It on the Chin, the Tunic, and the Dynamo. And some of you may be like, okay, why doesn't he just block here with the Dynamo, and then if it's a 0-4-4, just use both of his Take It on the Chins in order to block out that damage. And I believe the reason why he doesn't want to do that is because Take It on the Chin is basically his only card in the deck that allows him to prevent arcane damage. And he wants to save a Take It on the Chin for as long as possible in order to maybe at the end of the game be able to kind of bait his opponent by just flipping a Take It on the Chin onto that 1 arcane damage attack off of a Asvulai or Burn Them All and have an additional turn. That being said, if he maybe does the math, and I believe he has done the math or kind of have felt it, if it would have been possible for him to ever lose the tempo after performing this play, and I feel like it would have probably been possible for him to lose the tempo, right? Because he can like easily draw into something that does not give him go again, or like bunch of blue cards, and he just doesn't want to risk it, right? And at the end of the game, at the end of the day, he was still about to win the game, even after this effective blunder. But I feel like there is a very solid reason behind him just allowing the Ashwing to hit. And that reason, I mean, we're going to see it at the end of the game, right? Like Maximilian goes down to 1 health, and his opponent has burned them all on the field, but he first looks at his hand before surrendering because he knows that there can be a third Take It on the Chin there, and like Maximilian was, Dromai was effectively in a situation where all he can do is just attack with a singular dragon a turn, maybe. So here he's going to use the hit and run in order to give himself go again. So like he uses 3 value here. He will have to pitch the Take It on the Chin, and which leaves him with like 1 additional resource more than he needs, and he's going to attack for 4 here. And Arthur decides, okay, like this is the time that I'm just getting rid of. I'm just getting rid of the Armourer. Now he has 5 cards in hand. Once again, he has a he has a Faithful Saint in hand that he elected not to block with, and instead he's going to be pitching it for a Kailoria later this turn. And this kind of goes back to exactly what we were talking about, which is he tries so badly to kind of establish a situation where he is pushing for a lot of damage and trying to get the Dorinthea to a very low amount of cards in hand. While he still has a dragon on the board, kind of effectively allowing him to perpetually keep large amounts of cards in his hand, right? Because if he gets rid of all the cards in hand from Dorinthea here, and he still has a dragon, then Dorinthea will probably have to like kill the dragon and not him, allowing him to keep yet another full card of full hand, essentially. Dorinthea has go again off of the Take It on the Chin, obviously, and with a singular blue, he's going to go for Destroy the Kailoria, attack for 4. And here we have one of the best, I feel, plays in this entire game, where Arthur just plays to his best chance of winning defensively, right? Like he goes through his opponent's graveyard, he goes through his graveyard, and I believe he also goes through how many cards he has in deck in order to try and figure out what the chances are. Because he's getting attacked for 4 here, and he has a Sink Below in hand, which he can just use immediately in order to try and get rid of this Kailoria because it's kind of unplayable, and try to get into something else. He can get into a Burn Them All or one of 2 Asvolize out of his deck, both of which just give him an immediate win, right? Because this is just pure arcane damage that is unpreventable, and he has seen a bunch of the Take It on the Chins go away, so the chance of his opponent drawing another Take It on the Chin is like very, very slim. And he also knows that there is Spill Blood and a couple of other reactions like Blade Fury and Blue Overpowers and whatnot left in his opponent's deck. So he decides to not risk it all here on the Sink Below to try and find an Asvoi, because if he doesn't find an Asvoi, his turn is basically going to be play Burn Them All, attack with Dromai, and deal 1 arcane damage, right? And the Dromai can get popped, it can just get blocked, and then whatever he drew, if it's going to go into the arsenal, it doesn't matter, because Dorinthea is effectively going to just have like a 3 card hand with a tunic, and those can be scary. So he decides to go for the defensive play here, getting down to 1, but keeping a Sink Below in arsenal. He's going to go for the exact play we were talking about, and here we see Dorinthea getting exactly what we're talking about, right? Like he had access to both Overpower and Spill Blood. He decides to block with the Overpower, which can be interpreted as, okay, he has like another Overpower in hand, or he has Glint or something, but it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like, because if you block here with the Sink Below, you can't do anything here. If you block here with the Sink Below, you get blown out by something like Blade Flurry in hand. You also get blown out by something like Glint into Blade Flurry. So instead of that, he decides to go for block for 7 here in order to kind of make it almost impossible to lose. But I mean, it's not almost impossible. It's like in all situations he has to kind of draw a sigil in order to win, right? Because if this was an Overpower here, it would have been attack for 8, so he needs to draw a sigil. If this is Blade Fury, he most likely would not have kept it. and he would have kept the overpower. If this is go again, then like in order to survive the second axe that is going to come for 5, he needs to draw a sigil in order to effectively block 6 and just attack. So like in all scenarios he kind of has to draw sigil, but he covers more ground by blocking for 7 here, and at the end of the day he does draw the sigil, but it's very, very important because we do see an Azula in his hand, and I believe he removed one of the Azulas with the Sing Blow, but there was kind of a 50-50 chance if he would have hit the Azulai or like any of the other cards in hand with that Sing Blow last turn, and if he decided to go for that more greedy line and he did not hit the Azulai, he would have lost here. So that's kind of like the more epic decision making, I feel like. Unfortunately, Maximilian didn't draw into anything playable off of that glint, and we will see with his next hand he has like a Blade Flurry in there, so like the threat of that happening was very, very real. And here we're just going to attack, and that's it. Yeah, like in all seriousness, it was like a very, very clutch game. You can see like Arthur cannot really believe that happened, and Maximilian is kind of sad because like 2 of these draws would have most likely have won him the game last turn, right? Because like a second glint on the a second glint on the second axe would have allowed him to swing a third time for either lethal or just destroy the Dromai and leave him with like no cards and no ash. But it is what it is. So yeah, that's it. See you next time.